All right. Well, now on to the sermon. Yay. I didn't pay John anything. Well, sometimes people make the Christian life far too difficult. We get so frustrated trying to understand every mystery of the Bible down to the exact time when Christ will return. Or we feel useless because we don't understand something that maybe somebody else does. It seems so complicated. Or we get frustrated because we don't have some amazing gift of singing or preaching or healing or some other gift that someone else has. We search in vain for just the right book to explain everything to us, and we tell ourselves if only we could understand all of this and become like so-and-so, then our faith would be strong and our life would be good. Sometimes we make being a Christian so complicated. I was invited to a Christian study group several years ago that was made up of an Orthodox priest, a Catholic priest, 2 doctors, and 2 college professors. This group of believers was studying the writings of the pre-Chalcedonian church fathers. In other words, they were studying the writings of Christians who wrote after the Bible, but before the Council of Chalcedon in 451 AD that defined the hypostatic union of Christ. Now, I'm no dummy, but nuclear physics would seem like kindergarten compared to the stuff that we were studying. And talk about making your head spin. And it was fun being together with those guys, but I'm not sure those books brought me any closer to Jesus. Sometimes we make the Christian life far too complicated. So I'll let you in on a little secret. What Woody Allen said about life in general applies to the Christian life too. 90% of life is just showing up. If you just show up at Jesus' feet, if you just show up where Jesus is at work, if you just show up with other followers of Christ, then you're more than halfway there. 90% of the Christian life is just showing up. For example, let's look at Jesus' miraculous feeding of the multitudes. He used just a couple of fish and a few loaves of bread. And this is one of the only miracles that's told about in all 4 of our Gospels. So it must be important. We'll read John's telling of the story today. It's found in the 6th chapter of John. And I'm going to start at the 3rd verse. Then Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down with his disciples. The Jewish Passover feast was near. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming toward him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 8 months' wages would not buy enough bread for each one to have a bite. Now, Philip doesn't know what's going to happen. The people are going to be fed by Jesus, but Philip doesn't know that. And neither do the people coming to Jesus. They don't know that they're about to see one of the most famous miracles of all time. They don't know that they'll be given a free lunch. They don't know that Jesus will change their lives that day, or that the work of God will become real to them in a whole new way. They simply show up together. And things happen when people show up around Jesus. Miracles happen. Lives are changed. And if you aren't there, you miss out. 90% of the Christian life is just showing up. You can look at nearly every important event in the Bible, and it's not that the people were particularly smart or well-planned or even faithful. It's that they showed up that mattered. even the animals. 2 by 2, the animals showed up at the ark. Dumb as an ox, crazy as a loon, as slow as a sloth. They didn't have a clue. But they showed up and were saved from the flood. Moses saw a burning bush, and so he went over to see. He showed up, and he became a hero. Little David showed up unannounced and uninvited at a battle with Goliath, and a giant fell. Elijah showed up on Mount Carmel to face 450 prophets of Baal, and God sent fire from heaven. Peter, James, and John just showed up at work there at the seaside, and Jesus made them disciples. The blind man showed up as Jesus walked by, and he could see. Mary showed up at the tomb, and she met the risen Lord. Philip showed up on the road to Gaza, and an Ethiopian man became a believer. Paul showed up in town after town, from Jerusalem to Rome, and the gospel changed the empire. And Jesus showed up on the cross, and the world was saved. When it comes to faith, there are a lot of things we can and should do. There are plenty of things to learn and many miracles to see. But if we don't show up, we miss it all. 90% of the Christian life is just showing up. But it's not just so that we can see the miracles or so that we don't miss out. 90% of the Christian life is showing up because somebody needs what you and I have to share. God doesn't want to just show miracles to you. God wants to work miracles through you. And that can't happen